Welcome to today's Explainer. Right now, we are going to unpack this incredibly high-stakes history that happens entirely behind the scenes of all that glitz and glamour of Hollywood award seasons. We're talking about the Hollywood screener. It's this promotional tool that totally revolutionized movie marketing, but kind of by accident, it sparked a massive, decades-long war against piracy.
So it's a scenario I think we've all seen make headlines, right? A highly anticipated, totally top-secret movie somehow makes its way onto the internet weeks, or sometimes even months before it's officially released in theaters. But how exactly does that happen? No way it's just a mistake. How do these exclusive, unreleased films end up in the hands of the public? Well, the answer, more often than not, traces right back to the very system Hollywood relies on to win its absolute most prestigious awards.
Okay, let's get our terms straight. A screener, which, fun fact, is often abbreviated by pirates as just SCR, is simply an advanced copy of a film or television series that's sent directly to industry professionals and awards voters. And, honestly, it's a brilliant strategy. It helps smaller indie movies gain visibility, and a positive mention can absolutely secure an Oscar or Emmy nomination. But there's a huge catch. By sending out thousands of physical copies of unreleased movies into the wild, studios essentially created an unprecedented security risk.
And I mean, the studios definitely don't take these security risks lightly. The Television Academy, for example, explicitly warns its members with this very specific language. They tell them these screeners are copyrighted property, merely loaned out under a strict license for personal consideration only. They even go as far as to embed tracking technology to monitor illegal activity. As longtime Oscar voter Peter Bart pointed out, these constant threats and digital tracking systems can literally make the movies practically unwatchable if your TV set doesn't properly recognize the digital warning. But hey, the studios aren't messing around here.
So how did this whole thing start? Well, it began as a pretty rogue marketing idea back in 1985. Director John Borman actually paid out of his own pocket to make VHS copies of his film The Emerald Forest available for free to Academy members at a few LA video stores. The idea spread like wildfire, and by the 1990s, mailing video copies was pretty much ubiquitous. But the real turning point, that hit in 2006. Lionsgate literally mailed a DVD screener of Crash to over 130,000 members of the Screen Actors Guild. It ended up securing a Best Picture win, and after that, well, any reservations the industry had about mass screener distribution completely vanished.
Now, while this marketing tactic was an absolute dream for securing awards, it spawned a total nightmare for piracy. The studios were basically bleeding out unreleased movies. This actually led the MPAA, who represents the major film studios, to just outright ban the distribution of screeners to Academy members in 2003. They cited massive copyright infringement fears, which, fair enough. But remember, who needs screeners the most? The independent films. So a group of independent filmmakers actually sued the MPAA over this ban, and get this, they won. The MPAA had to reinstate screeners, but they didn't do it quietly. They introduced a brand new policy requiring every single recipient to sign binding contracts promising they wouldn't share the tapes.
As you might guess, those binding contracts didn't exactly stop everyone. Fast forward just a year to 2004, and the FBI named Academy member Carmine Caridi as a person of interest in an ongoing federal piracy investigation. They actually discovered that he had been sending up to 60 screeners a year for at least 3 years to a contact named Russell Sprague out in Illinois. Yeah, Caridi was swiftly expelled from the Academy.
But expulsion was really just the beginning of his problems. His whole illicit operation was dismantled, and Caridi faced a staggering financial penalty. He was ordered to pay a whopping $300,000 fine to Warner Brothers Entertainment. That breaks down to about $150,000 per title just for infringing on 2 of their major films, Mystic River and The Last Samurai. It was a very loud, very expensive warning shot fired by Hollywood right into their own ranks.
Sometimes, though, despite all the threats and warnings, the leaks get incredibly specific and, honestly, super awkward. Back in 2014, a pirated file of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty popped up on file-sharing networks explicitly bearing the text Ellen DeGeneres 11-26-13. Yep, 20th Century Fox had sent that exact specific copy to her show around the time she interviewed Ben Stiller. Former Kickstarter CTO Andy Baio, who rigorously tracks this stuff, reported this bizarre leak. And while it wasn't an official Oscar screener, it perfectly illustrates just how easily a physical promotional copy can slip into the wrong hands. So to fight this massive wave of online files, which pirates aggressively tagged as DVD-CR to advertise their high quality, studios had to get creative. They implemented some extreme, constantly escalating defenses. It started with really prominent on-screen graphic watermarks. Then they moved to embedded tracking technology hidden deep within the files. They even used the encrypted Content Scramble System, or CSS, to prevent the disks from being copied at all. Eventually, they started encrypting disks so heavily that they would literally only play in special machines given exclusively to the voters themselves. Talk about a digital arms race.
But my absolute favorite defense, without a doubt, was FlexPlay. These were literal self-destructing DVDs. When you took these discs out of their airtight packaging, they immediately began to oxidize. Exactly 48 hours later, they became completely unreadable. It was like something straight out of Mission Impossible. This limited play technology actually made its awards debut at the 2003 Caesar Awards, where voters received a FlexPlay DVD of Gus Van Sant's Palme d'Or winner, Elephant. How cool is that?
Eventually, though, the sheer waste and immense cost of that physical era finally caught up with Hollywood. By 2020, we saw some major shifts. The Emmys eliminated physical DVDs entirely to end the madness of all those wasteful mailers. This saved tens of millions of dollars and massively reduced their environmental impact. The Motion Picture Academy followed suit right after, fully discontinuing physical screeners by the 2022 Oscars. Everything just moved to secure, private video-on-demand platforms like the Apple TV Academy Screening Room app. And, you guessed it, the pirates adapted right along with them, quickly replacing the DVD SCR tag with a brand new Web SCR tag.
So we have to ask, did this massive shift to digital actually work to stop the leaks? Well, the numbers tell a pretty stunning story. If we look back at 2003 and 2004, a massive 89% of Oscar-nominated films leaked online via screeners. 89%. But in 2022, right after the complete ban on physical screeners took effect, only 9% of that year's Oscar-nominated films made their way to pirate sites, meaning 91% remained completely secure. That is a steep, undeniable decline.
However, taking a victory lap right now might be just a bit premature. Anthony Anderson, the director of film security for Universal Pictures, points out that the digital era isn't exactly a flawless fortress. It really just shape-shifted the problem, opening up entirely new, complex vulnerabilities. Because think about it, instead of a physical DVD getting lost in the mail, now the big concern is voters simply sharing their login credentials. Plus, you have diverse device security flaws because voters are watching on all sorts of different hardware setups. And of course, an online platform faces the constant looming risk of remove attacks from anywhere in the world. As the piracy group Evo even noted once, in some cases, digital might actually make the pirate's job easier, not harder. So the medium has completely evolved. We've gone from John Borman literally handing out VHS tapes in video stores back in 1985 to highly encrypted Apple TV apps today. But it leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder as we wrap up. Have Hollywood studios actually solved the piracy problem by eliminating the physical screener, or has the digital war only just begun? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems behind the scenes, and I'll catch you next time.